Now, I live in an 80-20 split between what I call beauty and rage. So 80% of my time I'm in the beautiful, the good relationships, the positive things I want to create, the wonderful things that are already going right, the things I'm grateful for, my compelling vision of my future, which I think will bring a lot of good to a lot of people. But then I spend 20% of the time in rage, in self-hatred, in being fundamentally disappointed with who I am today and what I've accomplished, in knowing how much more I could do, in focusing on the enemies who want to see me destroyed, the people that actively want me to fail. And in that, and so I'll come back to, from an evolutionary standpoint, that anger, that rage is nature's way of allowing you to be able to withstand a higher degree of pain and suffering.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. I'm here with the one and only Tom Bilyeu, who's the co-founder of Quest Nutrition, and now we're here at the Impact Theory Studios.
Yes.
So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
So I've been seeing you everywhere online. I was just speaking with Alex, and you guys seem to be just all around the web. I don't know if it's an algorithm you guys have, but it's amazing the amount of presence you guys have, and you guys just really picked this up in January.
Yeah.
So what's been that transition like, going from running a billion-dollar company into becoming more of a thought leader and needing to be in front of the media? What's been the biggest mindset shift for you?
There actually hasn't been a mindset shift. So that, to me, there are universal principles to success, and they're going to apply no matter what you're doing. Now, the specific skill set obviously is going to become very different. And so there's things that I'm focused on now that I wasn't before. And there's certainly things that I am no longer needing to focus on, like manufacturing and things like that, which was a universe unto itself and really took an inhuman amount of time and energy. But this has been a lot of fun. So, and I think part of what makes going into the social realm so interesting for me, I didn't grow up with it. So, millennials and Gen Z for short, like, they just take it for granted. Yeah. So for them, do you know the David Foster Wallace talk, This is Water?
I don't.
Absolutely fascinating. You must go listen to it right now. Drop it into YouTube. Yeah. Anybody listening to this, trust me, do yourself a favor and listen to it. David Foster Wallace, This is Water. And he talks about how the fish is the last person to realize that it's in water. It's so ubiquitous, it's so ever-present that you don't even see it. And that's what social media is, certainly to Gen Z, and very much so for, I go to bed very early. So I'm in bed by 9 p.m. like it's a religion. And I do that because I want to wake up early. And in waking up early, now you get this time where the world is just silent. It's still. And because I usually only sleep 5 to 6 hours a night, if I go to bed at 9, there's times I'm up at 2 a.m. But my day has started. And that period is just incredibly rich for me. So the first thing I do is I work out, but then I immediately meditate after I work out. The meditation gives me the space to actually hear those little whispers of intuition, which are incredibly powerful. But because intuition whispers, it never shouts, you really have to create that quiet space to hear it. And then I do something I call thinkitating, which is, so when you meditate, you get in an alpha wave state. And one of the reasons it's so powerful is the alpha wave state is denoted as the one that is calm and creative. So you're in this relaxed state where your mind isn't racing, you're not feeling anxiety, and you're making these cross connections between different regions of your brain. It's very powerful for creative thinking. The problem I found was the whole point of meditation is to quiet your mind. So here I am, I'm having these amazing ideas and I want to be distracted, but I'm telling my mind, just breathe, just breathe, just breathe, and trying to really focus on the part of the breath cycle that I'm in. And I began to resent it. And I was like, I'm having my best ideas while I'm meditating and I'm sitting here trying to crush them down, and now I'm afraid I'm going to forget, and that's sort of breaking the whole point of meditating. So I thought, well, what if instead I meditate first, I really do calm my mind, I only think about my breath, but then I immediately follow it with thinkitating, where I'm going to leverage the buzz of that alpha wave state, and I'm going to set my mind to the biggest problem that I have for 20 or 30 minutes and just let my mind wander on it. So whereas in meditating, I'm specifically trying not to think, During thinkitating, while I'm maintaining the breathing cycle of meditation, I'm specifically trying to let my mind wander across a problem. I don't try to force it on anything, but I'll set it loose on a problem. Sometimes it wanders far away from that. Other times it really goes right to work on that problem. And I find that I have way more creative insights into it. That has been massively, massively useful for me in terms of creativity, coming up with new ideas. And then the other part of the process is this math equation that I'm obsessed with, which is ideas in equal ideas out. So I am not at all worried about thinking unique thoughts. I'm fully willing to admit that there are no unique thoughts left in the world. That doesn't bother me at all, because there's still massive room for creativity between the thoughts, connecting unique ideas. And that's where I think the real juice is. And that's where I think any individual gets to bring their unique mind to the table and read a book, listen to a podcast, whatever the case may be, take that piece of information and let it react in your mind. And then what does it make you think of? What are the parts of it that you want to adopt in your life? What are the parts that you want to discard? What are the parts that marry with other ideas that you have in your head? And what are the offspring of those ideas meeting? And so that process has been very, very fruitful for me as well. And I find that oftentimes during thinkitating, I'm actually pulling in the ideas that I've been reading. So I read voraciously. And when people ask me, like, what's the key to my success? Always be reading.
And do you speed read?
I speed listen. So I'm a very slow reader, but I can do Audible books at 3x and retain the information. And that is really, really, really powerful for me.
I think there is a fixed concept about this whole idea of meditating, that we have to be sitting down and we have to practice a certain concept. But for some people, running could be their form of meditation. Working out could be their form of meditation. And to me, you seem like, and I follow your Instagram stories, you're always working out at 4 a.m. You're super motivated. That's something about you that is super clear, that I think stands out amongst, and I know a lot of motivated people, but there's something about you, your energy, even when I'm sitting across from you, you have this drive, this twinkling in your eye that's still there, I feel. And generally the people that have these big inspirations or motivations, they generally come from the worst place, right? Whether it's poverty, whether it's, tragic death. For me, I'm an immigrant, so I came here when I was 7, and, my parents had to fight for everything. And for me, everything that I do is for me to give back to what they've given me. I'm curious to know what that is for you.
So I think in movies, and by the way, thank you for the Matrix code behind us, which is for sure the most impactful movie on my life. But let's talk about Star Wars for a second. And they do a really good job of showing both the light side and the dark side. And I think people need both. And I think that there are evolutionary mechanisms that are there. The light side makes you feel connected. It makes you want to help. It makes you really want to contribute to the tribe. And I think it's pretty obvious why that would be advantageous for such a social creature, to want to do good things for people, to want to see them win, to think about the beautiful things that you want to create in your life. That I think makes sense to people. But what I think people miss is the power of the dark side. Now, I live in an 80-20 split between what I call beauty and rage. So 80% of my time I'm in the beautiful, the good relationships, the positive things I want to create, the wonderful things that are already going right, the things I'm grateful for, my compelling vision of my future, which I think will bring a lot of good to a lot of people. But then I spend 20% of the time in rage, in self-hatred, in being fundamentally disappointed with who I am today and what I've accomplished, in knowing how much more I could do, in focusing on the enemies who want to see me destroyed, the people that actively want me to fail. And in that, and so I'll come back to, from an evolutionary standpoint, that anger, that rage is nature's way of allowing you to be able to withstand a higher degree of pain and suffering. So if you take, they've done controlled studies of this, absolutely fascinating. So if you take somebody and you want to see how much pain they can tolerate, what they do is they make you submerge your arm in ice bucket. So it's actually worse, like ice water. So you've got your arm in there, and at first everybody's fine. You don't have to do anything. But then after like 3, 6, 10 minutes, it's brutal. And it really begins to be this mental torture where it's like, how long can I endure this? Because they know I can pull my arm out at any time. So how do I manage to keep going through this? And what they found is if they told people right when you feel like you have to pull it out, I want you to get angry and start swearing. And when they do that, they can stay for 30% longer by triggering an anger response, by being aggressive, by really like enraging themselves. So you can imagine if you encounter an animal, a warring tribe, like whatever, and you need to show up at that moment. It isn't thinking the beautiful thoughts. It's fucking bloodthirst, man. It is like, I am not going to lose. I'm going to rage into this person. I'm going to go with everything I have. And in that adrenaline, that aggression, that like anger and rage, you're able to deal with what you're actually in the middle of, which is going to be high degree of pain, which obviously is going to be suffering. So it is a tool that we've been given that lets us really push. Now, it's when people lose the balance and they spend north of, in my opinion, north of 20% in that it begins to be corrosive. So if you're spending north of 20% of your time focused on the people who hate you, focused on how disappointed you are with your own results, focused on how hard things are, if you spend more than 20% of your time there, it begins to diminish you. And that's where people just have to realize it's a choice, right? You get what you focus on. So if you focus on the bad things, they're going to be there and they will seem ever present. But likewise, if you focus on the good things, they will be there and they will seem ever present. So you get to decide what percentage of your time. You could spend no time in the darkness, and there are people that do that, right? You could spend all of your time in the darkness, and unfortunately, there are people who do that. But I think at the end of the day, it's really about understanding what the power each one of those has, knowing when to use them, and knowing what the appropriate balance is to really be centered, to really still feel the joy in your life. And I think that most of the time, you're better off focusing on the beauty and spending your time there on something that's uplifting and encouraging and motivating and inspiring,